But I realized that to win the Champions League final, we should just win. So there are situations in life where growth is not the solution.
It's such a good thing that you didn't stay in football, but go ahead.
So don't try to be in the middle, and I think that's what many people try to do, but step into one of those outers in a particular moment.
If you want to be a master of a certain leadership skill, you should also be able to match it with the situation that you are in. How do I do it? How do you perceive me? How with my team, obviously. Having all these open and vulnerable questions on how do you see me as a leader, and then match that to how I want to be seen and how do I show up. To get to the quote unquote top is about doing, just starting and growing. Welcome to Unscripted Leadership, the podcast that brings together an inspiring and diverse range of leaders, from founders to CEOs, artists to scientists, public servants to athletes and beyond, for a candid, unfiltered conversation. The show explores how identity, personal growth, and leadership intersect to shape the future of teams, organizations, and society as a whole. And with we, I mean myself, Ingrid Tappin, but more importantly, Gwen, Kolader, a seasoned global HR leader. Both of us are experts on culture and leadership. Yeah, and before we start to introduce our guest today, we would like to thank the VDS team. This podcast is recorded at the Valencia Digital Summit, one of Europe's most prominent international tech events, and a platform that is transforming Valencia into a global tech hub. Here, they bring together the world's leading startups, scale-ups, and influential corporates and visionary investors since 2018. What's so cool about VDS is that it is a gateway to powerful business connections. It brings together companies and individuals you might not typically encounter, and they welcome over 12,000 attendees from 120 countries, facilitating meaningful interactions, and we are so grateful to be part of this. Thank you to the team of VDS. Great. Well, moving over to our guest of today, Wouter van den Berg. Welcome. Wouter, you are the founder of BrainCompass. What does BrainCompass do, Wouter?
So we provide people with insight about who they are, why they are who they are, and their tap potential. So we are delivering assessments to the total talent journey. So from selection in the candidate acquisition space, but also the development assessment for talent development questions and internal mobility costs.
Okay, but there's something very special about the way you assess.
Yeah, so that's so basically BrainCompass was founded almost 14 years ago, and it was at the end of my PhD thesis where I combined economics and neuroscience into a model of climbing and mapping talent. And most people know us from the idea that we combine nature and nurture. So we are the only assessment tool that allows you to also spit in a tooth, donate your saliva. And based on that, he will find the natural talents, let's say the gifts, your parts, will factor without seconds.
Because you measure the DNA of lemurs, right?
It's DNA that's collected by the saliva. And then we add to that your life experiences who continue to shape who you are. Through questionnaires, scientifically validated questionnaire. So we are the only tool that combines the nature and the nurture strategy and help you become who you want to be.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's such a great tool. So we have prepared a couple of fantastic questions for you because you're very interested in what kind of leader you are and your view on leadership. So, it is about exploring identity, personal growth, and leadership that intersect to shape the future of teams, organizations, and society. But next to the fact that BrainCompass has a tooling that can support leaders on their development journey, we're particularly curious about your identity. So let us start with our first question, which is: you started out trying to become a professional footballer and later pivoted to neuroeconomics and founded BrainCompass. What was a series of moments when you realized you had to step into a different identity? And how did you make peace with leaving the part of the old dream behind?
So that's obviously making the assumption that I be.
That's true. That's true.
So I would say on bad days, I still cry a little bit about it. So give a little bit of background. I spent the first 21 years of my life trying to become a professional soccer player. I spent climbing representing the Netherlands in the Dutch youth team. So I was what they would call relatively placed. And then somewhere around that age of 21, they told me either, I didn't have it or I didn't activate it. And I think that's an interesting combination to look at when you look at talent and potential. But both of those questions would bring you to the solution, which is do something else, right? So they asked me to move away from the pitch, and then I stepped into my university studies, where then BrainCompass was founded out of my PX2. Um, I think going to your question, um, I think wording really matters in conversations like this. So what is identity is also, I think, really to give a definition for that, which isn't, I think, the one definition, but maybe we can use a definition for today, somewhere around the idea that who you are consists of what we will call an inner game, your dreams, your emotions, your talents, your drivers, your motivations, your aspirations, and your outer game. So your behavior and how you show up. And now in hindsight, the type of soccer player that I was actually is also the type of leader that I am.
Oh, fantastic.
So I'm not really sure to what extent my inner game has really changed, but how I showed up and try to be valuable, making that on the outer vein has changed. Obviously, from the pitch to the earth now as a leader and an entrepreneur.
Did that experience of not being able to reach the top level of football change your outer game?
Yeah, so I had, from a very, obvious perspective, I had to change the arena, for instance.
Yeah.
Literally, the arena where it's, it moved from the pitch to the university, and then from university to the company or the organization that we're building. I think that you do start to attack life lessons.
Yep.
And I think, the experience of failure and not living up to the potential that I believe I have has added something like I still want to make it to the top.
Yep. So that inner game never changed.
That
Maybe it ignited.
yeah, it
even.
ignited
Yeah.
even, yeah, and maybe also fast tracked. That let's say one of the lessons that I learned was, so going back to my inner game, I'm all about growth, right? So that's my top two values are faith and growth. I don't know, how to prioritize those two and put them in hierarchy, but we can talk about that later a little bit later. But growth is, in my opinion, close to trying, experimenting, and also failing a lot. And at the same time, when you approach every moment in life as a moment of growth, we'll try something new, even if you're playing the Champions League final. But I realized that to win the Champions League final, we should just win. Right, so it's not about trying and practicing, and so there are situations in life where growth is not the solution.
Yeah.
So I think I added that as
an extra to your beliefs.
So define, what's a training situation, where is failure not destructive, and then expand that idea of growth and
In that sense, also found that there's a difference between performing at the top and between winning, because if your value is growth, then the top is always higher.
That's and but for instance, like when I was always the team captain, right? I was always every year we got like these evaluations, like the yearly talent appreciations, like we also have in companies nowadays. And then I was always, let's say, at the top 3, but I was never the top 1. And I was always helping other people do better. And I was, always thinking about structure and thinking about tactics and thinking about more shielding, those who had a difficult time in the nets or in the season. So I was, I think, very valuable in the sense in the team as also somebody that empowers or drives growth in others.
Mm-hmm.
But when then there's only, let's say, money for one filter,
you're not getting it.
No, that's not who they need.
No.
And so I should have realized earlier on that apart from helping to the growth, I also had talent position to pull. And then I should have stepped into that superpower and found a way to actually win.
And how do you, so because you mentioned also growth is also about failure and learning about the failures or the mistakes, maybe to frame it a bit better.
Yeah.
Um, how do you do that in your today's work? Do you have um, fuck up moments or failure zones, or how do you play around with growth in that sense?
So I've tried to elevate that to the idea that, and I've done quite a lot of research, right? So I'm a data guy. I like evidence and evidence-based approaches. So I've studied over, I think, 95,000 people globally, most of which are leaders. I've put people under fMRI, so brain scanners, to find out about brain activity. We've done hormonal analyses, we've done genetic testing, and even I went as far to go into doing fundamental research in mouse. So I even know a little bit about leadership in mice and how they manage sociality in groups.
It's such a good thing that you didn't stay in football, but go ahead.
And I think that if there was a solution, right? If you could find something that's true or it will always work, I stumbled across it, and there's many
Would always work for what?
for whatever question, right? So, what's the best leadership style, or how do we approach target setting, or how do we deal with culture, or the wow,
Yeah.
etc. Right? And I sort of stepped away from finding the answer to defining the trade-offs, so to make in that question.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
And that's how I sort of read back in the experimentation, because once you realize that it's not about being right or finding the solution, but it's about making progress by finding out what doesn't work perfectly yet, then experimenting becomes sort of the number one strategy. Because finding out and failing fast uh, helps you be agile, adaptive, and elevate yourself and the people around you.
Did you figure out what's the number one question you should ask a leader if you want to uncover what it is that they want to grow into?
As a leader themselves.
Yes. I mean, you coach a lot of leaders, you have a lot of insight into leadership and growth. When you meet a leader, what's the question that you ask this person?
What's the behavior that's opposite to what you think is perfect? And then what's the beauty in that?
Can you give an example?
So let's say you are a very authoritative, directive leader, and then at the opposite side, the spectrum would be let go, self-management of people, etc. And then obviously, if your preferred style is to be very directive and goal-oriented, they would say, but that never works, right? Because people will be, doing their own thing and there's no clarity. Yeah, it's true. But then I say, so, and then what's the beauty? The beautiful side of that, just shiny side of that opposite
Right.
spectrum.
And that's where your growth lays.
That's where your growth is.
So there's always wisdom in the other on the other side
I
of the
would
medal,
say
so to
that,
say.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we try and help. And, in the coaching, I always try to help leaders or people in general to be ambidextrous.
Yeah.
That's like being left-footed and right-footed at the same time. And then we say, but don't balance, right? So don't try to be in the middle. And I think that's what many people try to do. But step into one of those outers in a particular moment. So feel free to be very direct to it when price tilts, but also feel free to experience the liberty and creative freedom by letting people, decide for themselves and organize by themselves when the situation permits. So it's stepping into both of those versions of you or facets of who we would say.
So you're saying don't merge them to become like the perfect leader, but be situational about when you step into.
And stay in the extremes. So ideally, I sort of see this in my mind as, let's say life is a movie with, scripts. And then there's in script, there's a scene. And in the scene, there's, let's say, how do you say that?
A cut.
So yeah, and there's different images then after each other, right? So
Right.
the frames.
Yeah.
Frames. Yep.
And if you look at time and you say, so the frame is small enough, then you can be 100% X. And if you would combine multiple frames, then you would average out. But in every individual decision that you make, you show a part of who you are.
Yeah.
And if you don't make a radical decision in a single frame,
Yeah.
then things get really blurred because you're
Yeah.
always stuck in the middle.
Yeah.
And,
It gets messy.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then what's the
And
say?
not authentic
Jack of all
anymore as
trades,
well,
but
yeah.
master of none, right?
Yeah.
So people usually forget
wow, yeah.
part of that.
Yeah. But just to clarify for the listeners, when you're saying if you want to be a master of a certain leadership skill, you should also be able to match it with the situation that you are in. So it's never a standalone skill. It's always connected to the context in which you are applying it.
It
Not
only
one
has
form.
value.
Yeah.
It only has value given a goal, a situation, and a context.
What's the most difficult thing for leaders to learn this?
Well, then the interesting thing is, so you have to be able to do both, right? But now you have to decide when to use what. And that's very often where they get stuck. Because they still see that as a problem they need to fix, as if there is a right solution to what part of you we should show in which moment.
Yeah, and in every given moment, there is a solution to whatever it is, how you should show up, which is not the case, of course. If you translate that to yourself, you as being a leader, has there been pivotal moments where you maybe caught yourself staying in the middle or maybe moved to the left or the right, which was not the best decision?
So a very practical example would be, leaders have to let people go, right? So they have to fire people. And an interesting question is, so how long do you give people the opportunity to prove their worth? And, I would say the old idea would be you have to be on the right moment, right? You as a leader need to find the spot where people had enough time to sort of settle in, on board, and develop. Or, experience a bad period at home or whatever, so you see performance decline. And at the same time, you have to protect business impact and say, listen, there's not endless time. So, and the old way of thinking would be you have to be spot on. And I would say it's technically impossible.
It's always suboptimal.
I mean, it's always suboptimal. So you have to define your the error that you want to know, right? So what's the pain that you're willing to suffer as a leader, which is either giving some people too much time,
Yeah.
or some people too little time.
Yeah. But you know that beforehand. Yeah.
And they could have been very successful. They just need to throw their weeks because they are moving in from another country and I don't know what, right? And I'm the type of guy that gives people too much spa.
But do
And
you
this
only
is-
give time? Do you only give time, or also you as a leader? What is it? What's your contribution when you see people struggle or underperform or whatever?
So I give them
Yeah.
time and resources, and that's also my time, right? So I spend a lot of time helping my people and become better and grow and overcome hardship. And I sometimes I'm even a bit compulsory in that. So I really step into their private life as adult. I like them to share their struggles. I'm willing to align, business goals or their role goals with, the current situation at home. I wouldn't go as far to even, to do things that they don't think they need, but I actually know they need.
Is this also what you mean by trade-offs?
And the trade-off would be that I'm overspending, right? And I'm giving people too much. So going back to your question, I've suffered, as a business. I think we have suffered because we've overspent on people that we knew beforehand, or somewhere in the process. That being candid and say, listen, this is not problem work. It's not about you as a person. It's about who we need you to be versus who you want to be or
Yeah.
can be at this point in
There's a
time.
gap. Yeah.
And there's a gap that's unsolvable. Let's have the difficult conversation or the courageous conversation and find out about your next step. And that's not going to be here. And that has definitely impacted business.
Wouter, we're here at Valencia Digital Summit. Lots of founders walking around. You've been a founder for over
14.
40 years. 14 years ago, if Wouter van den Berg of the future was sitting here, and your younger Wouter is listening to this talk, what would you share with him? What would be your 3 leadership advice?
Well, so maybe if it's 3, then we can do a start, stop, continue, right?
Yeah.
So there's one thing that I got taught very early on by one of my mentors, who was a psychiatrist, and he said everything that's worth doing is worth doing badly. And basically, the idea is that, so let's say you're treating a patient that has depression and lies in bed all day, and you make the agreement with that patient that, as part of a recovery, at least get out of bed every day and shower. And you would come back a week later as a psychiatrist, and then you found out that they didn't shower. They washed their hands every day. That's still better than nothing.
Yep.
So I see a lot of founders get stuck in thinking they need to solve too many questions that are too complicated or complex and too big. And I would say, start something, the panels start moving, energy starts shifting, and then based from that movement, and it creates days.
Yeah.
And I think I've throughout BrainCompass, we've done a lot where people would say impossible,
Yeah.
and not allowed, either even ineffable or uh, uh, extremely surprising, which
Yeah.
are all we started out by doing that,
Yes.
but with good intent.
Incentives.
I think that's excellent advice also, because I think people get stuck sometimes because the mountain is too big in front of them. So if you and they don't even know how to cut the mountain into pieces. So helping them finding the scissors, taking tiny steps.
And we're hearing this about a lot from people who've had a lot of experience, and they're all invited to speak on the main stage. But their main lesson is, I made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
Gillian Tans was talking about embrace the chaos, right? Olivia just said DE&I is super complex. It's a long journey. You just need to start. And you're actually saying the same thing. To get to the quote unquote top is about just starting and growing.
And the reason why that's so difficult, I think, and I think I've, not to talk about myself too proudly, but I was taught sort of this mantra very early on, and the mindset thing that lies behind that is you have to be willing to bear the pain or the guilt of the imperfect solution.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of particularly well, I would say, in, I know this isn't the best version,
but I'm okay with
but I'm proud that at least we moved the needle a bit.
Yeah.
And you can watch me in a year,
Yeah.
and then we gave it another 15%.
Yeah.
And in that, I think sticking to what I believe is where we should moving to if we talk about that, and then moving the needle on our step.
What's the second?
Well, that will be the continue. Yes, and so never forget that one.
Yeah.
I think the stop would be, and I should have known because I was taught this also by another mentor of mine who said, "You can't want it more than they do."
You can't.
This is also from what
From leadership perspective, when you're dealing with people, you cannot want it more than they do.
So people are not, let's say, intrinsically motivated.
Yeah.
We could spend an entire podcast about what that would be, but let's say it doesn't align with their why, their ambition, their values. We can try and give them everything, and I've tried quite a bit. But it just don't
Won't work.
So if they don't want, they'll find an excuse. They find a data set. They find a project. They find a track record. They find a liveness in anything to keep them in the comfort zone of where they want to be. So I should have stopped earlier with some people.
Okay.
And in some cases, even decisions that I made as a leader because I wanted something, but it didn't align with, let's say, customer ambitions. So it's something that I thought this will change your world, but the customer didn't want it.
Yeah.
But where's the thin line though? Because I guess there's a thin line. As a founder, you have this full focus of what it is that you want.
Yeah.
And your work ethos and well, your clear focus on where to go to might differ a bit from the people that you hire.
Yeah.
When do you say it's not fitting anymore? Because 100% might be too ambitious.
Yeah. Well, that book might bring me to the start. So what would I start? And that's embrace imperfection.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, I thought that alignment was aligning for 100%. So company ambition. So if you would look at BrainCompass, it's sort of an extension of me. We're also not very big company, right? So that's relatively easy. We're only with 10 people. But we do have a big ecosystem of partners all around the globe. But if you look at the core, I thought that everyone needed to be as invested in me, in the company as I was.
Yeah.
And that's just not fair.
Yeah.
Right? So if you look at it from a Venn diagram perspective, I think I would have a 95% overlap with what BrainCompass is. I have my friends, I have my creative freedom, I have my future, I have my pride, I have my money, right? So it pays my salary. So it gives me a lot. And I had to, I would start finding like quicker what's the part
That they are
overlaps, and I would be okay that there are parts
that do not.
overlap.
Yeah.
And I would start to accept that quick because until very recently, that was a no-brainer. That was if it doesn't overlap, let's say it's almost free.
then you would not.
I wouldn't be able to trust people. And
Yeah.
this goes back to, my personal development still. I wouldn't see comfortable, handing people the keys
Yeah.
to my little baby that you have already.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting though, because trust, I think, is one of the great, most important elements of building a team and pushing it forward. How do you build that trust as a founder, as a leader? How would you define that? And I think it's a complicated question to answer, but
Again, it's about words, right? So I think trust is one of the most complicated words there is. Because is it trust in others? Is it trust in the sense that they will share your secrets? Is it trust in their capabilities or qualities? Is it trust in their intention? But if I would take let's say the deeper element in trust that I value most in that concept, it goes back to that value of faith, which is I need to trust people's intention with their impact. So what are they trying to accomplish? And I think we've been able to hire a very diverse team, diverse in our game. And so I think we do have an 80% female team today. But those people don't differ that much from how they look, or how they think, and how they feel, and how they experience their background. They differ pretty well. I always like to say we make each other anxious, nervous, and irritated all the time, because everyone is solving the challenge that they are confronted with from their perspective, which is really uncomfortable for, let's say, most of the other people.
Yeah.
But we always bring in the compassionate side of saying, but we know why she's doing it, or we know why Wouter is doing it about this.
And how is, because that's,
Say how it's.
I agree totally with you here on that. If you're working together closely with people on a mission, you have to be able to irritate each other. You have to be able to have constructive conflict and know that that's okay, right? That the relationship will not tear because you're not you don't have the same opinion, or maybe you are angry. But how do you test what somebody's intention is? How do you know that their intention is good?
Yeah. So this is, if we will be able to solve that, I think we should start another company.
Well, 90%. I mean, it's not. I mean, it's always difficult for 100%, but there must be a way that you have found a pattern.
So my solution.
Yes.
This question, right? So my solution is, and to be able to understand that, maybe one step back, I think we all, so we know our early upbringing, so the way that we were raised, with psychologists from attachment style, drives some of this, right? So how you're able to trust other people, how you're able to have a compassionate view to why they're doing what they're doing, and to what extent you feel comfortable in relationships when people are not necessarily matching who you want them to be, but still feel safe and connected. And if you would look at my attachment style, which is obviously part of our framework that we use for the talent development process, means I'm somebody that has learned through life experience, even though there's no one to blame. This is just how it happened. That I'm actually very
Low trust.
low
Trusting.
trust.
Yeah.
And that, going back to what he said before, I can always then come up with arguments why not to trust people, right? So for me, in that sense, that's why I call it fake and trust. It's something that I give people. And it's almost like a decision to go all in on the relationship, and say, I don't need to validate. I just need to see your behavior when you're given the freedom. And if so I'll give you the key to my heart, or let's say the key to my house. And if in 2 weeks you'll steal my television, then I know. So I've taken a very sort of practical solution to this, because I don't trust on my own inner compass on this, because I know I have my predispositions. So I just give people the trust, and I'll find out relatively soon if you're abusing it. And I just hope the mistake or the price.
But this is your specific solution, because you know your specific attachment style and what comes with it. And well, I know, of course, from your test, there are 4 different approaches to building trust and giving trust, etc. Could you say that the overarching solution is to have a value connected to the trust? Because yours is faith. it might be somebody else's would be different.
So that's a good. So I would say a value is it gives you insight into the decision mechanism underlying someone's inner game.
Yes.
So it's a summary, like a stop that you use to make soup with. Like it's a very high density version of who that person's inner algorithm, how that works. And a value is sort of a very concise way or a very minimized way to give you an idea. And if you align on that, then you can sort of assume that many of the underlying decisions also align with yours. So that will definitely. Yeah.
But all this, I think, when you can agree with me, all this talk about developing yourself as a leader, developing other people, it requires a lot of self-consciousness, self-knowledge.
100%.
Would you say that that is kind of the essence of becoming a better leader?
I think that would be if let's say scale up and growing, rapidly growing organizations, right? I think the thing that you'll find is that you need to renegotiate who you are with yourself and others all the time, because it's impossible to show the same outer game to solve the questions in the different stages of your company, to solve questions in consumer related areas versus people related, or product development versus long-term strategy, etc. So, being in that sense fluid means, or growing means, that you have to constantly renegotiate from a place of self-awareness and
Discovery.
discovery. And I do want to sort of, use that as so one of the worst words that I think you can use in conversations like this is them, find your authentic self, because authenticity then becomes a limiting concept. Because for many people, it's sort of authenticity means sort of a one-dimensional or stable version of who you are over your lifetime. And I very much more like the fact that you can, start to self-expand your outer game and, staying true to your inner game, but then growing on how you can show that to be, how you can play along at the different
So
phases.
yeah, it's so interesting. And how would that look like in it? Can we make it more tangible? So how would that look like? Would that be that you should be open to be challenged by others? That you do a lot of inner work in a certain way. Can you make it more tangible for people who are listening and want to become want to grow as a leader?
Yeah, so I think the first question you should ask, like, how much freedom do you have to press the pause button between your inner and your outer game? So some people believe that how they act is just who they are. That's also when we do workshops or team
That's a
sessions.
very much said.
Yeah, so
phrase,
that's me.
right? Yeah,
That's
it's just
I've
me.
always done it. That's me, and I should also love myself. So why are you, challenging me on? So am I not good enough?
Yeah.
And I always say, so were you able to press the pause button and then, press play again? And if that's true, then you are in control of who you are, how you express yourself. But many people don't know that there is this pause button.
No.
Which is about reflecting about your inner state, about your emotion, but also literally your heart rate, sweaty hands.
But I believe that that is authentic leadership.
What?
It's a definition thing, but I believe that that is authentic leadership. So pressing on that pause button and deciding who do I really want to be in this moment. And am I not only reacting because I'm feeling an emotion? And if you are able to press on that pause button, you have to connect to your values. And that is, I believe, your authentic self, which is always different.
Well, but my challenge to that would be, so let's say you have somebody who's not able to do it.
Yes.
I would say that person is very authentic, because that's apparently a person that's not able to press the pause button.
Well, I don't think so, because I had somebody give me the example. If somebody steps on your toe and you react angry and say, fuck off, you're stepping on my toe, that you can say is my authentic self. If somebody who is 2 meters high, 2 meters wide in a metro, and this big, let's say, guy steps on your toe, you will not react that way. And that is also your authentic self.
That's exactly what I mean. So apparently you are the person.
Yes.
Then decides differently depending on context.
And the consciousness of being aware that you're not just reacting, I think is closer to your authentic self. But again, I think we do not agree, but not disagree, but it's about definition, because again, I think values are so important, and you're talking about that, knowing them and acting according to them is difficult.
Yeah, and but then so the why I think this is an important topic is that but you express who you are
Yes.
in your outer game, so in your behavior.
Yeah.
So either saying yes or no. I know people who would are maybe 150 like in centimeters and would challenge the 2 meter two guy
Yeah.
in the sub.
Even though it would be dangerous.
But we see this at the company, right? So if we bring it to the corporate arena, or let's say I have people in my team who are taking up challenges, sacrificing
Their
a
health.
little bit of their, who they also want to do.
Yeah.
And take one for the team, or they know it's needed for, let's say, a couple of months, etc. And I think there's also people who play it safe and say, listen, but this is something that, that is going to leave me too much scars.
Yes.
I do too much pain.
Yeah.
And I think both is okay.
Yeah.
It's just as long as we're able to say, listen, you are not that type of person, that's fine.
Yeah.
And agree on that who you are shows in how you show up. And I think that because that's the first prerequisite towards self-awareness, saying, so currently I'm that person
Yes.
that doesn't or does.
That's exactly.
And how we can start to see, and then how do you want to be? And now we can maybe add the pause button, or in my case, I had to remove it. So I had a pause button for everything. First, I would reflect and have 6 voices in my head on 15 different scenarios. If I would now do this, then what would all happen?
Yeah.
And
But you reflected on that, and you made a decision, which was also a form of
Pause button.
pause button. Yes, exactly. And so it's really aligning with it's continuously aligning the inner and the outer self again. Interesting. I think we're almost
running out of time.
Yeah,
a
we
little
can
bit.
talk about this
Yes, right? So
for
I
ages.
think we're gonna, so, but we can talk forever and ever, I guess, because I'm so intrigued with everything that you say and such a great and rich view on what leadership is. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah,
For your
I do think, Wouter, we always have interviews like this, and we ask you so many things. What are your last questions that you might have for Ben and me before we stop?
nice.
my question to you then.
Yeah, you're a learner. You want to know from leaders. We're leaders.
Yeah. Good. So I think one of my questions would be is how to resolve exactly this paradox of so who do I believe I should be versus if I would do a deep dive in my roots, my identity, and let's say everything that I was given intergenerationally, culturally, from your background. Where do you and how do you balance that inner outer game question to stay, let's say, true to your inner game, but also making progress in your outer right? Because if you are not looking into something, then you won't have traction. But if we're looking into too much, then you won't show your full.
You're
flash,
scattered.
right?
Yeah.
So how do you as leaders find access to the stage with the background and the identity that you bring to the play with?
Wow, what a question. I I think if I look at my own leadership and the growth that I've seen myself doing over the years, I guess one of the things that I keep in mind is to ask for feedback and to really listen to it. Um, I think it shows me the gap between my inner and outer leadership style or my values or how I want to be perceived as a leader or how I show up as a leader versus what is real, what I'm actually doing, right? So, and sometimes I guess when I was younger, I could make and I can still make mistakes in my leadership style, and not even being aware of it because I was maybe struggling with my inner way of leadership and how to match that with the outer way of showing leadership. And I think that gap is becoming smaller or it's closing a bit, or at least coming more together, which I find very interesting also to see for myself. But I guess I don't have a simple answer to your question because I find it such a rich question and it's just going through my mind now, finding the right answer. But I guess I'm always looking for feedback, so that's why I went and came to you, Wouter. So to give some more insights into also scientifically looking at my blueprint, but also talking to people like Ingrid or like you to say how do I do it? How do you perceive me? How with my team, obviously, having all these open and vulnerable questions on how do you see me as a leader, and then match that to how I want to be seen and how do I show up. I guess that's a constant process, but that's sort of how I would answer for now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feedback, extra change. Yeah.
Well, I think for me, there are 3 layers of being a leader in development. And that is, firstly, understanding who am I, right? Where does my inner game come from? Why am I doing what I do? Why am I feeling what I feel? And then secondly, who do I want to be? And that's really tied to the values that I have. What do I want to mean for other people, for the society, for my friends, for my family? And then the third layer is how do others perceive me? That might align with how I perceive myself, but it might also not align. And those 3 layers, they all have tensions, and they are the tensions that let me grow. And being continuously interested in myself, in in others, but also how others see me and what that does to them. What impact that has, and it can be positive or negative, and then deciding who do I want to be in that sense. So for me, it's that.
Yes.
Nicely said. Yeah.
Okay, great. I thank you for that question.
Yeah. You're very welcome.
Thank you for the talk.
Great answers.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining our podcast. And Ingrid, it was a great session, I guess.
Right.
Very nice. How? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, I will see
Yeah.
each other soon. Yeah.
All right.
This is the
Ciao.
Bye.